Hello BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reviews for December the 15th through the 21st. I finished 6 books this week, yay, and 5 out of the 6 of them are category romance. So this is going to be category romance heavy. The Harlequin imprints, if you're unfamiliar with what category romance is. But yeah, they're still, I actually had a 5-star read this week. So that was great, and it's been a good reading week, so let's jump in and get started. So the first book that I finished this week was Tempting the Texan by Maureen. This is a contemporary romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Texas Cattlemen's Club the Inheritance series. Harlequin Desire novel number 2702. This was published in 2019. Average Goodreads star rating of 4.24 stars. I gave it 3.5 stars. For my challenges, this was for my RRC, the Romance Readers Reading Group Challenge. Number 8 for Winter Solstice, which was to read a shorter book. And these books, the Desire novels, typically come in, actually most of the Harlequin imprints typically come in just over 200 pages. So it's a nice short read. And special thanks to NetGalley and Harlequin for sending me an e-arc of this book to review for you guys. So this is the story of, I have a hard time with her name, I'm sorry, Irina and Helen. So this book starts off with, this is, I think, it's the first in like a 6-book miniseries, and it follows different characters that you meet in this book and you will meet in other books that are to come. But it starts off with that Kellen's father has passed away, and he had 3 children, 3 known children at the time, Kellen, his brother, and his younger sister. And they're at the reading of the will, and they find out that his father, who had billions, left everything, the ranch, the entire estate, everything, to his ex-wife, his second wife, not even their mother, but his second wife, and whom he divorced years earlier. So the whole kind of premise of this miniseries is to find out why he left all this money to her. And, the kids seem to think that their father didn't care about them and things like that. Now, our female lead, Irina, I think that's how you say her name. She was at one time a maid at the main ranch house that the father, Buck, lived at. And, her and Buck were friendly, not that kind of friendly, not in that aspect. But he kind of, took her under his wing, like a father figure in a way. And at one point, 7 years earlier, not long after, actually after Kellen's wife died, a lot of drama in these books, you guys. Very soap opera-esque. That's how I always think of the Desire series and the Presents line as well. But anyway, not long after his wife passed away, he came back to the ranch to kind of, figure out what he was going to do with his life. And he met Irina, and the two of them ended up having a week-long affair. Now, the reason this book did not get a higher star rating from me, even though I did enjoy it, I like the premise, I'm looking forward to moving on in the series. I believe I have another book in January that's like the next in this series to read from NetGalley, so I'm super stoked about that. But the whole relationship 7 years earlier between Irina and Helen kind of made me go, okay, so they had a bit of a brief affair, an adult, relationship. And she has been pining after him for like 7 years. It was 1 week. And I'm not discounting anybody's feelings, but it just seemed to be blowing up into this huge thing when it really was only a week. And I think that they stated right at the beginning that this was going to be kind of a no strings attached thing. So anyway, their relationship at the beginning, them seeing each other again after so long and things like that, and her still kind of pining over him, it didn't really buy, but the entire story itself was really good. There's also this secondary kind of plot line going on where the ex-wife is in town, of course, not only for the reading of the will, but she is also on one of those Real Housewives type TV shows. And it's like a Real Ex-Wives TV show or something. So her and this other group of women are in this small town in Texas to kind of film this reality show. So that part of it was super fun, and I really, really liked it. And even though the ex-wife, you're supposed to kind of dislike her because she, she got all the money. She seems like a gold digger she's portrayed as a gold digger, when in reality you get a lot of perspective from her, and she's really not. She didn't know this was coming, as far as I know, as far as we know at this point. So yeah, so if you enjoy the Desire books and you want something quick and very tabloid-esque, very soap opera-esque. Do realize there is, of course, adult content in these stories. This was really good. And I also consider this one to be what I call a surprise Christmas novel. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the cover of the book, you read the back of the book, this does not take place at the holidays as far as you know. But it does. You know, when you start reading the book, it completely takes place over the Christmas season. And Christmas is discussed, Christmas decorations are discussed, the town is doing Christmas celebrations, there is a Christmas party at the Texas Cattlemen's Club. You know, like, it's what I consider to be a surprise Christmas book. Not one that you would pick up off your shelf and say, hey, this is definitely a holiday book. But it is. And in my Goodreads, I have a folder on Goodreads, or a bookshelf, if you will, on Goodreads called Christmas. And I have plopped it onto that bookshelf because it's definitely a Christmas read, and I've tagged it as such. And at the end of this video, when I kind of do my little montage of all the books that I've read, I've labeled this one as a holiday read as well. So that was kind of fun and delightful. The next book that I finished was When You Least Expect It by Helen Lacey. This is another contemporary romance novel. I'm pretty sure it was not an entire week of contemporary romance. This is the first book in the Cullens of Cedar Creek series. It is Harlequin Special Edition number 2718, published in 2019. Goodreads average rating of 4 stars. I only gave this one 3 stars. This one I read as part of my 40 Years of Harlequin project. So, this is the story about a couple who at one point was married. And their names are Tess and Mitch. And they'd been married for about 5 years, and over that course of time, Tess had had 3 miscarriages. And every single time she had one, of course, she became more and more depressed and sad, which totally understandable. So the two of them started fighting more and more after her last miscarriage. She wanted to try again for a baby, and he said no, because he saw what it was putting her through, but she wanted a family so badly. So he threatened to go and get actually a vasectomy. And she lost it and was like, you're taking this off the table. You're not even going to discuss it anymore. And she walked out and left him. And then they ended up getting divorced. So they haven't seen each other in a number of years. And then both of them end up at this hotel in a town, a larger town not far from where they live. And end up, you know, sitting down and having drinks together. And one thing leads to another. And they end up back in one of their rooms. And adult content ensues. And then at the beginning of the book now, so that's kind of the backstory of what's been going on. She shows up on his front door 5 months pregnant. So it's been 5 months since they saw each other at the hotel. And, you know, obviously it's his baby. And, you know, they kind of decide to figure out how to start rebuilding the relationship. If there is going to be one, she just wants him to be aware. She plans on moving back to town because her sister still lives in town and she wants to raise her baby in this small town. And she just figures he's just going to kind of be the weekend dad. You know, he'll pay some child support and, you know, he'll take little Timmy or Sally out on the weekends, that kind of an idea. Whereas his idea is, hey, you know what we need to do is get married. So my thing is that the attitude from both characters for the majority of the book, they refused to even see eye to eye for even a nanosecond. And it kind of drove me crazy. He would not back down that this is how it was going to be. And he was in a way almost going to use trickery on her because he was trying to like date her and, you know, get her to fall for him again so he could get his way. And then on the other hand, she wanted her way. Like, you've got to kind of meet in the middle somehow. And of course, it wasn't until the end where you get this big devotional, like, I still love you and blah, 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 you know, aspect of it that they began to kind of try and work things out. But it was just a lot of unnecessary back and forth. You know, I don't know how these two ever ended up married in the first place. You know, there's a lot of bad water under the bridge, clearly, and that's a lot to try and work through. So, you know, yeah, I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it, and I want to move on with the series. The writing was good, and I like the small town aspect of it, but I just did not like both of our main characters' attitudes. Neither one would give an inch, and that really did kind of bother me. The next one that I read, I love this one, you guys. Wrapped Up in You by Jill Shalvis. This is a contemporary romance novel, of course. Narrated on audio by Erin Mallon. This was really great on audio. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Book number 8 in the Heartbreaker Bay series. So I have jumped ahead a couple books in the Heartbreaker Bay series, but I will be jumping back and finishing the other ones. This one was originally published in 2019. Now that I'm looking at it, every book that I read this week was published in 2019. I don't think that was on purpose. Goodreads average star rating on this one was 4.07 stars, guys. I gave this one 5 stars. You know, if you watch my channel, to get a 5-star review from me is not easy. I loved this book so much. Hands down, my favorite in the Heartbreaker Bay series so far. I hope there's going to be more. So for my challenges, this one was for my holiday book bingo, and this was for a book with Santa on the cover. Now, originally I had a different book, a book by Tawny Weber, Christmas with the Seal, I think it was. But if you guys know, if you've been watching me, my husband lost his job earlier in December, and we had to cut some things that were like extra. And one of those extra things that we had to cut was the Audible Escape package. And that book was part of the Audible Escape package. So this book, Wrapped Up in You, I was able to find on Scribed. So I was able to listen to it there. Super yay. I'm so glad that I do want to go back and eventually read the one by Tawny Weber, because it does sound really good, but I'm so glad I read this one. So this one is the story of, Ivy and Kel. Oh, I loved their story. This book had this great mix of romance, intrigue, annoying family members, and Christmas. I know it doesn't sound like a good mix, but it really, really does. So Kel is on vacation, if you will, in San Francisco. This series takes place in San Francisco, and he's there staying with his cousin, who is one of the characters from one of the previous books. One of the things about this book, you could totally just jump in and read this one, not have to have read any of the other ones in the series, and you really would not be lost. You're going to meet a bunch of characters. You're going to kind of find out a little bit about their stories, but you would still want to go back and read their books. Let's put it that way. So he's on vacation. I'm not going to get into what it is. Something happened to him at work. He is a police officer in Idaho, and this was a great crossover in a way, because the town that he's from is Sunshine, Idaho, which is the town that is the Animal Magnetism series by Jill Shalvis takes place in Sunshine, Idaho. So I don't know. I haven't finished that series yet. I cannot remember if Kel has been mentioned as a character. That would be great. If anyone knows off the top of your head, please do let me know, because I love it when authors do that, where they have this world that they've built. It's our world. It's a real world with iPhones and the internet and cars and, you know, all the things. But they create these fictional towns that reside inside their own world in a way, like another dimension kind of, where these characters live. And I love when authors do that and they have worlds collide in a way, or, you know, different series intermingle with each other without, you know, it's wonderful. Anyway, so he's from Sunshine, Idaho, and Ivy is our female lead, and she has just moved to San Francisco not that long ago, about a year earlier. And guys, she runs a taco truck. I loved her from the get-go. As every time I got in the car and started listening to this book in the morning, on my way to work, I'm like, and she'd be talking about serving like breakfast tacos. Like, I am so hungry right now. Those sound delightful. So anyway, the premise is, of course, the two of them end up meeting, and, you know, a relationship of sorts starts to ensue. They kind of dance around each other for a bit, but she's got quite the backstory. She did not have the best childhood at all. She has a brother who she lies about what he is and who he is and what he does. When in reality he's pretty much a thief. He is not a good person. He steals. He's not a murderer. Not that I'm justifying stealing is better than murdering, but still, I think you know what I'm talking about. And he ends up coming back into Ivy's life, and stuff happens from there. Like I said, there's some great intrigue in this story. You know, it takes place at the Christmas season, of course, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. This book not only made me angry in places at the characters, not at our main characters, but at the secondary characters, for like, how could you do that? Or, you know, like, what's going to happen kind of an idea. And then at the other times, there was actually a couple scenes in this book that actually made me teary-eyed, to be honest. And it was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Do yourself a favor, if you have not read any of the Heartbreaker Bay series, go ahead and jump into this one. If, you know, we've still got a few days before Christmas, you know, go ahead and read this one. It was utterly delightful. Probably one of my favorite Christmas books I've read this year. It's going to go into like a top, you know, list, I'm sure. If this book doesn't make a year-end, you know, list or something for me, I do what I plan on doing for the end of the year is to do my year-end stats and then tell you guys all the 5-star books I read this year, because like I said, they are few and far between for me. but I still like to share all those with you guys. So anyway, this will definitely make my year-end list. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Loved the character of Ivy. Loved Kel. Fantastic book. Do yourself a favor and read it. The next one that I finished was Cinderella's $1 Billion Christmas by Suzanne Meier. This is another contemporary romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Missing Manhattan Heirs series. Harlequin romance number 4692. Published, of course, as I've already said, in 2019, as all the books were this week. Average rating on Goodreads of 4.67 stars. I give this one 3.5 stars. I used this one for my holiday book bingo for a book that was part of a series, and it's the start of a new series, so it fits. And again, special thanks to NetGalley and Harlequin for sending me an e-art copy of this book to review for you guys. This was really, really cute. If you guys love big city romance, like New York City, big city romance, at the holidays, you need to read this book. This is, you know, you see these movies come out on television and, you know, it's like that, you know, girl from a small town moves to the big city and it takes place at Christmas. That is totally what this is. So the premise of the Missing Manhattan Heirs series is about a man who was a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, and he fathered 3 children. But his name was never on any of their birth certificates. And he has now passed away. And in his will, he knew about the kids. Like, it wasn't like a surprise. He knew about the kids, and in his will, he was dividing his estate up 3 ways, one for each of the children. And at the very beginning of this book, we meet our main character, Lenny, short for Eleanor. And she is working in she lives in Kansas, lives in a very, very small town in Kansas, and she's a waitress, and she's going to school for, I think, psychology or something like that. She's putting herself through school. She has adoptive parents. Her mother gave her up when she was, you know, about 8 or 9 years old. Like, she was a bit older. She wasn't a baby. And so these adoptive parents have raised her. And now this man by the name of Nick has shown up, and he's a wealth management consultant kind of a guy. And he is there to hunt her down and bring her back to New York City to figure out about this whole heiress thing. So she is small fish in a big pond, you know, thrown into New York after living in Kansas and small town Kansas. And it's her, what I loved is like the first half of the book is you are so experiencing New York City at Christmas time through her eyes, and it's delightful. They go skating at Rockefeller Center, they go to a museum, you know, all these great things. And Nick kind of comes out of his shell a bit. What made me drop this from like a 4 to a 3.5 was the fact that I didn't really care for Nick. At first, I found him to be very standoffish, and you kind of find out why as the story goes on, but still. The other thing is that he threw around wealth like it was nothing, like it was water. Like, he made some offhanded comment that he was worth like only $1 billion or something like that. And I thought, really, you know, like, I just found it to be a little excessive. Now, granted, it's about a woman who's standing to inherit multi-billions of dollars, but it still felt like on Nick's aspect that it was kind of thrown around a whole bunch. So I didn't really love that, but outside of that, this was a delightful story. Like I said, small fish, big pond, New York City Christmas. Definitely check it out. Highly recommend. Now we're going to get into the non-contemporary romance ones and into the romantic suspense novels that I read. And the first one that I finished was Holiday Homecoming Secrets by Lynette Eason. This is, of course, as I just said, a romantic suspense novel. It's actually an inspirational romantic suspense novel. Harlequin Love Inspired number 791. Published originally, of course, in 2019. Average star rating on Goodreads was 4.51 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. For my challenges, I used this for 2. For my triple RC, it was for number 5, Children's Day, which was to have a child in the story. And our main character, Jade, has a daughter, and she appears in the story. And for the other one, for my holiday book bingo, I used this as my traditional square. Because as I said in my holiday book bingo announcement, traditional can also mean books that you tend to read every year. And I always read a Harlequin imprint Christmas book every year, so this is the one that I read. This was a really, and again, special thanks to NetGalley and Harlequin for sending me an e-art copy of this book to review for you guys. So, this was a really fun story. It was Jade and Bryce are our main characters. And Jade is a small town policewoman, and Bryce is her best friend's older brother, and he spent time serving in Afghanistan, and he is now back in town after 6 years, after being wounded in Afghanistan. He actually lost the lower part of his one leg in an IED. Is that what they are called? An IED. And that happened within 6 months of him going overseas. And he has kind of spent the last 5.5 years, like, A, getting better, and B, kind of hiding from the world and his family and not wanting anybody to feel sorry for him. But now he's back in town as a private, or going to be a private investigator. So at the beginning of the story, we find out that their mutual friend named Frank has gone missing. And he's a reporter, and he was investigating something rather underhanded, you start to find out as the story progresses on. Well, the one secret in this is the fact that the night before that Bryce was to leave for Afghanistan, he was over at the dorms in university visiting his sister, and his sister, I guess, had gone out, and Jade's grandmother had just passed away. So Bryce is kind of comforting her. One thing leads to another. He heads off to Afghanistan. She finds out she's pregnant. So he's got a daughter. Mia is the little girl, and he doesn't know. And there's a good portion of the story before Jade actually tells him about it. So, of course, then it becomes, not only are they trying to find out what happened to Frank, but also, you know, learning to rebuild their relationship, and the fact that she tried to get in touch with him, but nobody would relay the message to him that she was trying to get in touch with him. So she didn't try and keep it a secret. It just ended up happening that way. And, you know, them trying to rebuild their relationship, him trying to have a relationship with his now 5-year-old daughter. A lot kind of going on, takes place at the Christmas season. Some great intrigue in this book. I have mentioned before, but in case you're new, the Love Inspired series by Harlequin are actually faith-based. So these are Christian-based series. This one I found really enjoyable. It was not overtly religious, but these books contain no swearing, no adult content. They are clean romances, so you can really enjoy them for what they are. And yeah, I enjoyed this one a great deal, and I highly recommend you pick it up. It's also a standalone, which is always enjoyable too, you know, if you don't want to jump into a whole series. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And the last book that I finished this week was Alaskan Christmas Cold Case by Sarah Varland. This is another inspirational romantic suspense. Love Inspired book number 782. This was published in 2019 as well, of course. Average rating on Goodreads of 4.26 stars. I disagreed with the average on Goodreads, and I gave this one 3 stars. This one was part of my 40 Years of Harlequin project, which, again, if you're new, I'm winding down. I've got 2 more books to go. This was a project because I turned 40 this year, that my goal was to read one Harlequin imprint book published every year between 1979 and 2018, and then, so that was 40 weeks, so a book a week, and then for the last 12 weeks of the year, I was reading one book published each month in 2019. So it's been a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it, and unfortunately, though, not all of them were great, and this one was one that wasn't great. The reason this one only got 3 stars from me is because for about the first 25% of the book, I was completely confused. And I felt like I was jumping in partway through the story. So this is the story of Erin and Noah. And Erin and Noah kind of work together. She is an Alaskan state trooper, and he is the chief of police of a very small town in Alaska. And there is a serial killer on the loose. And as this book opens up, you're kind of finding out that this serial killer has been after Erin, who was a foster child, a former foster child. The serial killer actually killed her not her foster father, her adopted father, because she was eventually adopted by a family. And he was also a police officer or a state trooper, I can't remember which. But I just felt like I was jumping into this story with stuff that I should have already known. Like, I felt like there was too much that I should have known, but this isn't listed anywhere as part of a series. It's not on Goodreads as part of a series. It's not on Fiction Database as part of a series, which is usually my go-to. If Goodreads doesn't have a book listed as part of a series, I will often, if I know it is, I will jump to Fiction Database, fictiondb.com, in case any of you guys want to check that one out. It's a great website for books. It's not like Goodreads where you can catalog stuff and stuff like that, but it's a great place to look up series and stuff like that. So anyway, it wasn't listed there as part of a series either. The one thing I haven't done yet is check the author's website, because she has written a number of these books that start with like the name Alaska, like the word Alaska. Like they all obviously all take place there. And if it's a companion series, I get it, but it still should be listed, because they're talking about characters that, again, I feel like I should be knowing. And like I mentioned about the Heartbreaker Bay series, you can read that book completely out of order. Go ahead and read it, and you will not be lost at all. This book, if it is part of a series, I'm sorry, but the author did not do a very good job of it. Once I got past the beginning and got into the story a bit more, it became a bit more enjoyable, and I actually really did like it. The action was good, the writing was good, the characters were good, although Erin kind of ran a bit hot and cold for me. In one moment, she was tough as nails, you know, I can do it, I don't need you, I can blah, blah, blah. And then in another, she's like, not cowering in the corner, but like, you know, very, very fearful. And then at one point, she ends up getting injured, and she ends up going to hospital, and she's pulled off the case, and she's like, her life is now over because this case was her whole life. This was like her career case to find out who did it, but if like who the serial killer is. But if the serial killer is after you, that's a bit of a conflict of interest, you know, sort of. Like, you know, I'm not saying go and hide in your house with all the lights off and, you know, never leave until this guy is caught, but she's like pretty much throwing herself in front of him just to catch him. And I just, not good for a state trooper. Like, if that's how you've been trained, I think you're kind of throwing some of your training out the window. But anyway, now I'm rambling about this book. I didn't dislike it, but do note, like, maybe look at the author's website. You know, I'm thinking if I had known that it was part of a series, I could have given it a bit more leniency. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if it was listed as part of a series, and, you know, I could have said, okay, well, I'm the one who has not read the previous books. That's no fault of, you know, like, although, and I think it's Steve Donahue says this quite often, you can jump in partway through a series, and if the author does their job correctly, you shouldn't feel completely lost. Unless it's something like Harry Potter or something, you know? I don't know. It's just, it was a little annoying, and it really pulled me out of the story, and I had a very difficult time getting into it. But once I did, it was fine, and it was pretty clear sailing after that. So, that is everything that I have read this week, you guys. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books yourself and what you thought about them. Or what was your favorite book that you read this week? Because I'd love to know that too. Like, another week or so, guys, and this year is over. I cannot believe it. And we're into a brand new decade. That is super exciting too. So, until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.